Hello everybody, it's Starrapter here, and welcome to a very special video where I'm joined by my buddy, Evan Dave, author of Car-Thum. It is out now. I'm super excited. This is the first writer slash author I've had on the channel so far, so I'm really excited to dig into your debut book, man. How you doing today?
Very good, very good. I'm very excited about the book release.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. What can you tell everybody out there about Car-Thum? Give us like a quick little story synopsis, if you will.
Well, Car-Thum is about a scholar named Zakil who goes to explore these ancient ruins of an underground city that was historically this one wealthy mine until goblins drove out the miners. Now, it sounds a
Yes.
lot like Moria, doesn't it? Except Zakil finds out it's nothing like Moria. The goblins were enslaved. That was a slavers' revolt, and he's unwittingly joined in an imperialist attempt to resubjugate the goblins.
Yes, yes. So this very much has a lot of characters, and I've been enjoying what I've been reading so far. Now, can you tell us a little bit about these characters, who we might find on this adventure?
Well, Zakil's obviously the lead. I didn't write him as the lead, but I originally wrote one of the knights, Armand, as the lead. But as I was writing, I realized, Armand's all right, but not that interesting. This Zakil scholar, on the other hand, he's kind of interesting. I want to see where he goes. And the narrative slowly transitioned from Armin being the central character to Zakil about a third of the way through in the first draft of the book. So then subsequent drafts, I realized, I should focus more on him. And another major character is Jaborish,
Mm-hmm.
who's from Pastrika, which is supposed to be analogous to various African kingdoms, because you hear a lot about, Europeans going on this wonderful adventures in Africa, seeing all these strange civilizations. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what about an African coming to a European analog and
Huh.
seeing all the civilizations that appear strange, exotic to him?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I really like about the story, what I've read so far, is there's a lot of analogous kind of regions of characters from all over the place. You have not just, human characters as well. Like you mentioned the goblins, you also have dwarves. And I like how Zakil, he's got these two female warrior bodyguards, which is, in a common fiction I read today, you don't really ever hear a whole lot about the female dwarves. So tell us about these twins that are in the book here.
Actually, I got the idea from, I think it was from the Witcher. What's the name of the one dragon? Borch Three Jaws, I think, who poses as a human with two.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I know
I
who you're
believe they're
talking about.
from Z- Zarinthia, where
Yep.
Khazar is from Witcher
Uh-huh.
1.
Uh-huh.
He's got those two bodyguards, and that's what partially inspired me with Yazana and Yazi, the two
So
dwarf bodyguards of
so you
Zakil.
literally did
And
the yeah. You literally did the reverse. It's like you had the human who's flanked by the dwarves. In that case, it's the dwarf that's flanked by the or actually no, he wasn't a dwarf. He was a human that turned into a dragon, that's right. But
he
close
was a
enough.
dragon posing as a human.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. And we have this one female character that is actually from a region that's kind of analogous to, I assume it's like Russia or something, right?
Uh, Analogous to medieval Slavdom, yes. And actually, how Car-Thum came about was I wrote this one book which was supposed to be medieval Russian fantasy, and then I got carried away writing the lore, not only for that one country, I call it Ukrainia, but all
Yeah.
of the countries around it. And when I was writing the lore for Tarpon and Celeronia, I was thinking, you know what? This could be a good standalone novel, and that's what got me writing Car-Thum. And ironically, the next book I'm probably going to be publishing was also came out of the lore from the Slavic novel.
Oh, okay. So why fantasy in this vein? Why not science fiction? Why not current times? What gravitated you to writing Car-Thum in this kind of fantasy age?
Well, I've always been drawn toward fantasy in regards to writing. I mean, I've tried writing science fiction, but I always have this fear that I'd end up writing a Star Wars clone if I try sci-fi. So I thought, why not write fantasy? And secondly, I started writing fantasy around 2016, and this was actually been writing fantasy for longer. I only really got back into writing it seriously in 2016, and that was at the time I was actually looking over a whole bunch of non-Western histories, and I was thinking, we've got a lot of Western analogs in fantasy. Why not a non-Western analog? Because you've got some really cool civilizations in, Asia, obviously, and that's
Yeah.
something R.F. Kuang has been doing with the Poppy War. That's something that Evan Winter did with The Rage of Dragons, which is set in a world analogous to Africa, medieval Africa, I believe. It's next on my reading list. I have yet to read it.
Huh. That's interesting though. And again, bringing these cultures now. Where is Car-Thum in your mind? Where would that be in our common situation here on the planet?
Well, Car-Thum
Chalcedonia or whatever is your one fictional. Is that supposed to be Europe or America? Is there an America in your series here, sort of?
in there is an area on the fringes analogous to Central and South America in
Hmm.
the lore, but I don't know whether or not I'm going to write any books about that yet. Car-Thum is supposed to be purely a fictional construct, although it is
Gotcha.
loosely based on Tolkien's Moria.
Yeah, so we had a conversation the other night because I ran into a character named Albert, and I was like, oh, this disgraced knight. He reminds me of a character from Game of Thrones. He reminds me of Sir Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard of King's Landing, you know? And then you're like, close, but you said it was actually the character Jorah
Sir
Mormont.
Jorah.
So where would his country be or region? Because I that's why I was trying to figure that out.
Well, Sarah Lorne is supposed to be analogous to, Western Central Europe. Albert would be from Forland, which is
Yeah.
a little west of Teleronia and Eucradia, and it's supposed to be analogous to medieval England.
Ah, okay. Very cool, very cool. So getting into the process of writing, you said this is your first book here. Like, how do you even start? Like, for somebody that wants to start writing a fictional universe and whatnot, like, what do you do? Like, do you just start coming up with characters? Do you have an outline of a general story? Do you just write? Like, how do you process this? Because I know a lot of the times you're on social media, on Facebook or on Twitter, saying you completed so many pages of said book per day or something like that. Where do you start from ground zero, like having an idea?
Well, usually the idea just comes to me, and then I'll think about, is this a short story, or is this something I just incorporate into the existing lore of the world? And I'll just think, okay, this is a story. Okay, who are the characters, and where's it starting, or some broad points I want to hint at, and where do I end it? And I start writing from there. Well, actually, I start writing like a loose idea of where it starts and who the characters are, and then I start writing. I mean, I keep a lot of it in my head. Sometimes I'll jot down notes like, ooh, this should happen in 10 pages. Maybe that other thing should occur, not here, but 3 chapters on
Mm-hmm.
when we next see this character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And largely what I do when trying to find ideas for stories is simply reading ancient and medieval history.
Ah. Okay, because I know about things with A Song of Ice and Fire with the author George R. R. Martin. He read a lot of stuff about War of the Roses, he said, and stuff like that was given inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. Like the main conflict in Game of Thrones is loosely based on the War of the Roses between the House of York, aka House Stark, and the House of Lancaster, aka House Lannister.
Ah, okay. Okay. So on your day-to-day activities, when you write this story, how long did this story take, at least book one, from Genesis in your mind to being completely done, almost 300 pages later?
well, define done, because I remember I was bouncing this idea around. I actually started writing this book while I was writing the Slavic novel. I believe I started this one in July of 2017 and finished it in February or March of 2018. Well, at least that's when I finished a
Oh.
cohesive rough draft. And then I started editing. If you guys think writing, putting down words to paper is difficult, editing is fun. Like, you're constantly looking at, like, that word's wrong, that sentence is superfluous, I need more detail here. And you're like squinting, agonizing over your work. And I like to say that you go through several stages when writing. The first stage is, oh God, this is great. This is great. I need to show someone. You're like, that's pretty good. And then you're like, maybe this is not so good. You're like, oh crap, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. This is shit. This is shit. And you're like, okay, maybe it's not absolute shit. That works. That could use strengthening. That needs to be changed. And you start seriously reevaluating it as like, okay, it's not Game of Thrones, but it's not Twilight, thankfully.
I think we can put that on the cover. It's not Game of Thrones, but it's there you go. But oh yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine because on this channel, those of you watching that watch the content, I'm doing recaps of stories and I do like these little synopsises, and that's like between 6 to 10 pages, and I agonize over 6 to 10 pages of refixing things and wording it differently. So I can only imagine, first of all, stuff that you create in your own mind, that's your own work, and then
Mhm.
having 300 something pages worth of it is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, Car-Thum was actually especially difficult because I think I revised the beginning 2 or 3 times. I know I revised the ending
I
at
know you
least
did
three or four
because you
times.
showed me the first 5 pages, and I don't remember any of what you showed the final thing. I know it had something to do with goblins, I believe, but I don't think it was anything like it was
Well,
before.
one of the original drafts opened with the humans going into Khartoum, and then when I was reading, I was like, "Yeah, this
Yeah,
is ripping, but not exactly original." I think I might release that original prologue as short or something, and then I realized you don't really see it that often from the monster's perspective, and that's how we
yeah.
got the current prologue with the goblin outer defenses repelling the initial assault.
I really did like that because it set the tone. Like, oh, he's telling a different kind of story that we don't
Mm.
get from the other side of things, like the dark forces and what they're experiencing. And we're not going to go into spoilers at all in this video, and you guys can come back for that later on, but later on in the month. But there's just a lot of cool allegiances and how things play out throughout the
Mm.
book. Throughout the book for sure. But I do want to spend some time talking about how you go about world building, because within the first couple chapters, you're introduced to a number of characters. They all have this different kind of history. You're talking about these people called the Hurons. I believe that's how you pronounce it, or Hurons.
Eurons are supposed to be analogous to ancient Rome, or if
Oh,
you've obviously played the Elder Scrolls game, so they're supposed to be analogous to the. They're loosely based off the Iliads and loosely based off ancient Rome.
okay, okay. And these are the elves, correct?
An ancient High Elven civilization, yeah.
Yeah, so you have these characters, you have stories, you're making references in an italicized font to certain works of writing,
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature, 450 years, stuff like that. Like obviously you have a much bigger imagining of what this world is. There's different races, different species. You got mages involved with magic, all this sorts of thing. Like how long does it take to build something like that from the ground up in your mind to come with this vast idea of different things collaborating with each other?
A long time. Like a lot of lore came from originally writing my Slavic novel. And I recall I'd be like reading history, it's like, ooh, I want that in my world, or that works, but not really. So since it's my own world, I'm going to change it slightly so it fits better. And oh, this is a reference to a legend which it claimed it's magic, but it wasn't. what if it actually was magic?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that to me, it speaks a lot about what the future, can hold for your universe. Do you plan on, you mentioned different things and different events. Do you think you might go back and write those as well at some point?
Definitely write shorts.
Okay.
Definitely going to write not only the Slavic novel, but I'm also currently working on a novel that's set in the region much further east of Car-Thum, much further east of Al Saratu, which is where Zakil comes from.
So it's gonna be. Is this correct to say it could be like a Asian influence place?
Southeast Asia, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So like Vietnamese and stuff like that kind of
Vietnam predominantly, with some aspects of Japan, China, and Cambodia in there too.
interesting. Interesting.
I mean,
Um
I could talk a lot about that one, but let's save that for when it actually comes out.
true enough. All right. Well, I mentioned mages, and I thought that was a really cool thing. You have a mage character called Kara, who is of a nobility from. Is it pronounced Caledonia?
Yeah, Kara.
Yeah. So I like the one point in the story where she wants to use a spell and says to herself or somebody that, hey, there's not any water here, so that wouldn't be useful. Like, I can't. So I like the idea that you have to have that element present for you to use it. It's not like World of Warcraft or something where a frost mage can just go around and blast people in the middle of like a molten volcanic region where there's obviously no water. So, can you talk a little bit about how magic works in your universe here?
I mainly drew on Morwin's magic system because I really liked how, in contrast to other works where it seemed like magic is this like infinite wellspring and it's constantly replenishing, it's like having all these weird effects. Where Morrowind magic is sort of more of a low key thing for the player, at least. I mean, obviously, see that other people more advanced in the player have done bigger things with magic, like they've made these giant crystals, they grow giant mushroom towers, but all you can do is just, well, at least start, just throw fireballs and heal yourself. And if you're not proficient at it, you might not even be able to do that. You might just be wasting your magicka.
Yeah, because you say something about, oh yeah, like 1 in 10 people of Caledonia can wield magic, but only 1 out of 100 or something could actually like harness it to be used in like an efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of setting the precedent, almost like the Jedi, how like everybody's like kind of force sensitive, but there's only a certain amount of people that can actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so
because I didn't
that's
want a
cool.
world where everyone. I was thinking about warfare, and I was thinking it'd be a bit overpowered if everyone was just running around chucking fireballs at each other. So how about 1 in 100 people can only chuck around fireballs, and even then only for a limited amount of time, and
Yeah.
they've got a limited amount of magic. So are you really going to want to be chucking around fireballs or healing your companions?
Yeah, and there's also a moment or two when Karo's in close combat and doesn't really have an opportunity to do a spell because it's kind of too crazy at the moment, you know? You got to
Mm-hmm.
be a certain range or else things could backfire or you just can't summon the magical energy enough to be able to cast something. So I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was pretty realistic in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Car-Thum so far as the actual place and how it feels, I'm getting very much like horror vibes because it's just so dark. It's like Moria from Lord of the Rings. There's no lights. They can't use light because they'll warn the goblins that they're around. And there's things that go bump in the night as they're sleeping, and people are hallucinating, thinking they see. So it's very much like, oh my gosh, like these creatures gonna come out and just take people away. So I thought that was pretty horrifying.
Yeah, it was loosely based off Moria, also a bit of Aliens influence with LV-426, Atron.
Hmm.
Next question.
Yeah. So let's elaborate a little bit more on that because I want to know about. So when you're making this place in your mind, and you do a good job of exploring, giving pictures in the reader's mind, at least for me, about you have these different mansions, and there's like this whole different civilization. I know you don't want to give everything away because you want people to
Mhm.
read the book and all, but can you speak about just the idea of like underground civilizations and about how they have them spread out throughout your world and stuff like that?
Well, I've always enjoyed underground civilizations because, well, for one, you don't have to worry about walls, you don't have to worry about roofs. They're just there, and it's a lot easier to hide an underground civilization.
Yeah.
And I was always a big fan of Moria, but I always felt that in Lord of the Rings, Moria was sort of underused. Like, I wish we spent more time in there than we actually did.
Mm-hmm. 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 Talking about the characters, concepts, I like how you really borrowed a lot of things from the real world to implant them in the story, such as there's like a lot of racist stuff that's happening between the dark skinned people, like from the El Sarad or as well as
Mm.
Jaborish and Zakil. They're both from, those influenced places like the Far East and Africa, or the Middle East, rather, that sort of area. It seems like so it's interesting. You got the Celadonians who are just looking kind of down on them. Albert, those characters are just like, yeah, you don't need to be here. We don't need your kind, but they're the volunteer.
Mm.
Um, and you also have like the thing about the pork, which I found interesting. How Zakil's like, oh, those are dirty animals, so we don't have those because it's just disgusting.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'm a big fan of eating pork, but I only eat it sporadically because it's not that healthy for you.
Yeah.
And Zakil is from El Salvador, which is loosely based on the golden age of the Muslim world. And a lot of civilizations from the Near East, like Jews as well, view pork as unclean. So I wanted to get a little of that into there as a culture clash.
Oh.
And you see that a little more in the book when you see what the goblins eat and what they
Yeah.
consider unclean. Like
I just got
they're
to that
eating
part.
mushrooms that will kill a human.
Yep. I just got to that part. They're eating freaking rats. Like, oh man. And Jabaris is like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's not the worst thing I've had. But I thought that was pretty cool. Again, how you're bringing in, because I think that's what you get from really good stories is bringing in the current content that's going on in your life that's revolving around what's going on. Everything in 2020 was nuts, and 2021 is not any better at this point. So we're just surviving through it. But that to me was a nice touch. How we're including this diversity, these culture clashes that are happening simultaneously when they're in the middle of danger. I also really like how this was set up, kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring. You got these all these different adventurers from all these different backgrounds that have to like learn to work together to just get the job done to where they're
Mhm.
going and what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously very much inspired by Lord of the Rings. It was also inspired by another book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Last Ringbearer. It's a
No.
Russian book, which is a sequel to Lord of the Rings. It's been informally translated to English, which basically speculates Lord of the Rings isn't, as Tolkien claims, based on the accurate Red Book of Westmarch, I think it is, but rather that Lord of the Rings is Gondorian propaganda. For example,
Oh.
there's this one scene where it's revealed that Saruman joined Sauron not because he was power hungry, but because he was horrified by Gandalf's quote final solution to the Mordorian problem unquote. And there's also this one scene at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields where
Uh huh.
the Witch King and Aragorn are fighting face to face, and Aragorn has one of the dead men backstab the Witch King, and the Witch King's like, "You cheated. That's not a fair fight." And Aragorn's like, "Well, since I wrote the history books, they will say I defeated you in a fair fight." And his words, not mine. No, even better. You were killed by a broad and a midget. Unquote.
Oh man. But talking about the so-and-so main character, Zakil. I like how he's a warrior scholar, because I've never really heard of this concept before. Can you explain?
Well, he's loosely inspired by Ibn Battuta, who was this Muslim scholar who traveled all around the medieval world in, I believe, the 14th century. He went all the way to Rome, all throughout Spain. He traveled down the both coasts of Africa. He went all the way to Beijing and the Ming
Hmm.
court there. He didn't quite go to Japan, but although he did spend some time in Southeast Asia. And I was thinking, if you're going to want to be exploring a fantasy world, you might get into trouble, so you might need to know how to fight.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
that's
it's
really cool.
partially based on my own playthroughs of Skyrim and Oblivion, because whenever I see a rare object, I'm like, "Ooh, I'm taking that," and I like have a house which is dedicated to just storing this stuff like a converted museum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So obviously this is book one. So how many books are in the series? Is it a trilogy? Is it more books? Um,
Well, I'm currently writing the second book right now. There is going to be a third one. I don't know about a fourth or fifth yet.
okay. Okay. So what's your process like for the second book? Was it like you finished the first book? Is it like a self-contained story where you finish the first book? Or did you have ideas as you're writing the first book, like, oh, I can carry this plot thread unresolved into the second one to go
Well,
forth from
the
there?
well, the reason why I'm publishing this one first is that it's self-contained, and originally thinking, okay, this is just a standalone. Those are easier to sell as first-time author to agents, but that didn't turn out. The um, one publishing house that did show interest, however, they did say they'd pick it up as long as it was part of a series. So I started thinking about
Oh,
how could I extend that story. Unfortunately, they didn't pick it up, so I'm self-publishing. But that's when I realized, if this does well, people are going to want a sequel. So I figured, why not do something similar? I don't want to get too spoilery about it.
oh man, I'm looking forward to it. I think that we have potential. I mean, you built this vast, rich world here that's gonna encompass lots of cultures, lots of things that you're hinting at, going even far east to some certain books and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, but hey, I'm excited for the world to see this. So how can the world see this book
Well,
or read the book
right
rather?
now it's currently available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and wherever ebooks are sold. You can get the paperbacks from Amazon, Barnes and Noble. All other distributors are electronic books.
Cool. And I will put the link down in the description below for anybody that is interested in Car-Thum. So, is there anything else you want to leave the fine folks with? Any tidbits of information that we might have not asked you along the way? Anything you want to just shout out?
That's it. I mean, shout out to you for obviously having me on here, and shout out to my editor for making this book work. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I will say without leaving here, I do want to give credit where credit is due. The cover of this story is by Alexei Rudakov, and there's also an animated version of the cover done by Morgan Wright. So with that being said, that is gonna do it for my conversation with author Evan Dave for his book Car-Thum. So make sure you go ahead and again pick that up if you are interested. I hope you do. For more on content related to books, you're already in the right place. So just go ahead, subscribe to the channel for more on book reviews and plenty of other pop culture content. That's going to do it for me, Starrapter. For Evan, thanks for watching and see y'all later.
Great seeing you, Chris.
All right. Bye bye, everybody.
Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.